Hello, Tim.
Hello.
We're in progress here, so don't give away your credit card information.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm going to quickly go back to that. So people record with Riverside, some clients, and it's send them a URL, they join, it's all in the browser. It works actually pretty good. As we said many times, it kind of breaks my brain that it works so well. And then with that, then I get local recordings of their audio as well as potentially video. And what
Mhm.
Riverside unlocks with AI and all the fears of AI or whatever, but what it unlocks is the ability to make a very quick, light touch edit of the video. So they don't care. Like some clients, some people want like a super tight edit and cut out everything and moving the camera from one side to the other and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Riverside, I can do a quick like chop off the beginning, chop off the end where they're talking, not talking or whatever, and then basically export that as a full 4K video up to if I want.
Mhm.
So I could change them around from sort of facing the right way or whatever. Adds chapters as it as best as AI can do it, and then if there's any obvious like I can have AI producer thing here, even remove pauses. So like if there's something more than whatever 1.5 seconds of pauses or 3 seconds, let's say it's going to cut out one pause. If I do it up to 1.5 seconds, there's 20 pauses. You could do it down to 1 second or more, like awkward pause, let's say, and that would cut out 78 things,
Right.
and other.
Does it reserve does it reserve those, like, does it make a mark whenever it does that so you could put one back in if it was like critical for the tempo of something?
Yeah, so it actually
Wait,
has the
for
like
24 hours?
so like this.
per vehicle of
Whoa.
human labor.
24 hours is only $1,000? Oh,
I
man.
think so,
our,
right?
our tech employee is showing. But
Yeah, so like you could easily drag this back if you. And what I've noticed is that sometimes not to get too down in the minutia of it, but it'll cut out like laughter sometimes if it's not quite loud enough. It doesn't think that that's a sound
Mm-hmm.
because robots don't
Right,
have
right, right.
laughter. So, but yeah, you could have it remove ums and ahs and stuff and clean up audio. I don't really do a lot of that because these guys have really good gear to begin with, so I don't have to use AI to do all that kind of stuff. But and then it just spits out a nice HD version that I can throw up on their YouTube channel, and away you go. So
Yeah.
very slick. And up till that
Cool.
point, it wasn't really doable to do video. Like, sorry, I guess it was doable, but nobody wanted to pay for the amount of time it would take to do video, and
Sure.
that's where the problem would sort of came in. So
Right. This is why there's so many podcasts on YouTube right now, because it's
yes,
so easy to
it's gotten so much easier.
make it
Yeah.
more consumable rather than just watching somebody have a whole conversation in real time. You really just take out all the gaps.
Oh, sweet. Thanks for the link. I'll have to of my ad manager, so it shows me when it's going to run. Yeah, you should definitely follow Binary Digits. Be on Twitch and things for fun occasional streams, gaming and otherwise. So, Tim,
Yeah.
you let's see, do I have the right? No, that's not the right one. Dang it. There we go. There we go. Faces. Do you do websites, right?
I do occasionally do websites.
And for like, I understand normally you would do them for actual money and for professional reasons generally, I assume, not
Yeah.
just for
Yeah.
charity cases like a business owner like me who is too lazy to update his website. And you're not, just to be clear, you're not actually going to be building my website. But yes.
No,
this
but
is,
I'm here for the free, consulting.
in as much as I gave you advice on podcasting, you're going to give me advice on websites.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
So I let's see. Let's switch back now that I've gotten our faces all close up on the screen for my where am I here? There we go. The notes for the conversation that we'll have. So currently, I have a WordPress-based website, long in the tooth. As far as I would say, it's probably been at least 5 years since I updated any sort of formal way, even content-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to worry too much about the content. I'm not expecting your advice on the content itself so much, although happy to have that for anybody who's like, hey, you idiot, you have this on your website. That's always good to know. But basically, it's a WordPress website, which was the most common thing I was using. I was building client websites in WordPress just before I started doing podcast editing for clients, and so it's familiar comfortable, easy-ish, and using a theme that's I basically customized a little bit. I've got blog posts, I've got portfolio, I've got testimonials, and then by far and away the most important thing on my website is the why do they hire a podcast editor, as I fumble over my words and show why you need an editor. This clip.
All right, Chris, how are you, sir? Notice that there's sound effect to start and a sound bite from my guest. So we'll pause for that. 3, 2, 1.
This is going to be a tough one for you, Chris, and sorry about that. Do what you can.
Okay, I'm going to dive into web components. I just think that's a good sign. We'll let that pass and we'll edit this out. Oh, that's my dog. I apologize.
Anyways, so that was the voice of Chris and Dave, actually, if you're familiar with Shop Talk Show, like we were talking about earlier. So yeah, it's that's like by far and away the most popular reason or most important thing I have on my website, because most people are like, I get it now, and then they pay me tens of dollars to edit their website or podcast. I'm assuming, Nixie, it works. You have some connection to Astro. I forget since you know me through Tomorrow FM and Dax and Adam, you're obviously some sort of web dev person, and you're smart enough to know about Astro, which is a little bit nerdy. It's on my list. So we'll get to that. But I appreciate the call out to Astro. That's
cool.
The second.
I don't know what Astro is, so.
Oh, all right. So yeah, those are the things I need on my website. And so it's very simple. I don't update my blog that often. I don't update the content of it. I basically my portfolio gets updated when I remember to, like typical, whatever that saying is of like the shoemaker's shoes are terrible or whatever, that thing, except I don't make websites anymore. But
the shoemaker's children go barefoot.
Yeah, that's the one.
Something like that.
So in a funny turn of, I was just my oldest is doing computer science in high school. I came home last night to him like getting frustrated. I was like, oh, what's going on? I didn't know where he was at in his course yet or whatever. But like, he's like, I have to like write something in JavaScript. And so I had to download this program called Code, and I had to, I'm supposed to run it somehow, and I don't know how to run it or whatever. And I was like, I spent 15 years avoiding learning JavaScript. And now you're telling me, like, and he wasn't going to come to me about it really. And then he also had other funny thing is he had to like record a video of himself showing like he knew what he was doing. And he was like, do you have a mic or anything? It's like, do you know how to edit videos like of screencasts and stuff? I was like, let me just pause for a moment while I realize like my own child has no idea what I do for a living, and that my entire YouTube channel is like screencasts and podcasting.
Right.
And like one of my clients was literally called Real Talk JavaScript for 5 years. And like, it's like, and I work with the guy who created CodePen, where your teacher probably like writes code on. He's like talking to me as if I have no idea what I'm doing. And I already had VS Code installed on the computer. But anyways, just a funny little like this realization that I'm like stuck in this world of where my dad has no idea what I do for a living and my kids have no idea what I'm doing for a living. And I'll process that in therapy someday. So anyways, that's the long short of like what my website does. And the reasons why I'm like looking at changing. Welcome to Millennial Gen X life. Yeah, exactly. Stuck in the middle. So I don't update it that often. Like I said, a static hosting site generator could work, but I'm a terrible designer. Back of the line for therapy. I'm a terrible designer, especially when it comes to CSS. But even if I could design something, I can't really design to save my life, even inside of Photoshop or something, just as evidence of the graphics and stuff on here in my website or whatever. I don't get a ton of comments, so I'm not really missing those if they went away. Currently, I pay for hosting with Flywheel, which is a subsidiary of some big WordPress hosting company. I forget what the name of it is. Anyways, and it's on like an old plan that we got through Shop Talk Show at one point somehow, and probably couldn't get anything cheaper these days, other than going for free on like Netlify or Cloudflare. And then I'm kind of tired of WordPress, but it's not in the same way that I hear people whine and complain about having to use WordPress. Like I still going into the post or anything, but the whole like, much like Notion, where it's like everything is hoverable and menus popping out of everywhere, and it just like gets in the way of actually just writing a thing. And so that's where I'm sort of drawn back to like the static site generator files, whatever kind of based website.
Yeah.
But I did have that for my personal. So I'm just going to keep ranting here. And then
No,
you
keep
interrupt
going.
me when we
The
get to.
static side of things is something I'm very interested in, but have yet to actually dig into it.
Gotcha. Well, maybe if Nixia, I've already forgotten how to say it. Nixia. Yeah. Is around, they can provide more content on the static side, since they are clearly an Astro affiliate. So some of the stuff like we could use, obviously I could just stick with WordPress, keep going with what I know. And part of it is like, I just knew shiny, right? I want something different. And as technology people, we can all appreciate that. 11D is a static. Sorry, go ahead.
And from a marketing standpoint, it's nice to be able to demonstrate that you're on top of the latest thing, whatever it is.
Yeah. And especially like I edit edit podcasts. I don't edit websites as much anymore, but my podcasts are predominantly in the dev tech world. And so using something where they'd be like, oh, cool, this guy actually understands how to commit something to GitHub or whatever is a plus. Like, so yeah, like I worked with Syntax for a while, and definitely like they ran their whole website. I don't know if they still do, but through GitHub, and I think not Astro, but something else anyways, as the site generator for it. And so had to know how to just write code, even basically or whatever. So yeah, 11D was something I used to use for my personal site, so I'm familiar with it, but definitely struggled with like any sort of design elements or even updates to it. Eventually, like I was based on a theme that wasn't being updated as much anymore, and so then it was just kind of like, what do I do? And then sometimes it would break, and I didn't know why or how it was broken.
Right.
And yeah, but definitely nice having like flat files. So there'd be a bit of like both with it or Astro, a bit of conversion of like WordPress stuff into static files. That initial pain point for sure. I know there's tools to do that, but it took me like months. Just me personally, not it wouldn't. I'm sure. I keep wanting to call them asterisks, but that's not Nixia. Took them. Someone like that would know what to do a lot quicker. But lots of starts and stops with trying to like get my content from WordPress into 11D, and then from 11D when I was trying to like move it into Ghost, which is what I use now for my personal site, which is another option that I could use. Very comfortable with Ghost. I don't know how well it handles like multiple sites, because it's definitely like a login with this and that's your site. So I'd probably have to create a new login and a separate bill, and that could work. It's $9 to $25 a month, which isn't ideal, but could work. Squarespace, of course, is an option for just like phoning. Squarespace and Wix are to me like phoning it in as a website person, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with that for most people, because at the end of the day, you just want to get your website on the internet. But it does feel like I don't know, something.
Even as a web dev person, if somebody came to me and was like, I have an event that's going to happen one time, I need this thing in a week, I would say, look at Squarespace. That sort of thing is like, you'll probably find something perfect for your thing that happens one time in a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or once a year or whatever, even something like that, where you just don't. Yeah. So Wix is a non-starter for me. Something about it.
No, it's never.
In the past. It's not a one I want to. Webflow is one I hear about a lot, as far as like a customizing and building your website thing. But I don't know. Have you ever played with Webflow? It feels like.
No, I've heard of it, but I have not messed with it at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's way too much fiddling, which I'm sure is very good for the people who like to fiddle with everything. I don't really want to have to do that. So, but looks really powerful if that's your jam. So, oops, almost clicked ban. And then, so that's sort of that's what I was going back to for. I know B had some, like using Bear, or there's another little CMS. I can't find the comment now. So anyways, what are you seeing these days? What are you using these days? What is your?
My hammer of choice is Expression Engine, and has been for a long time. Mainly because I've used it for a long time, but also because it remains stable, supported, updated, and fairly powerful. It's more than what most people need. I certainly wouldn't offer it up to the person who's got an event in a month or whatever. That sort of thing screams out for just a simple static website or a Squarespace website. But if you are, a company with ongoing needs for content and you have more than a blog, like if you just have a blog, I might push you towards WordPress just because there's so much you can do right out of the box with WordPress if all you need is a blog. But if you need to publish blog posts and press releases and calendar events and photo slideshows or whatever, like if you have multiple kinds of content that you want to publish, I like Expression Engine because it doesn't approach content from any sort of expectation. Like WordPress is like, I can build a blog for you. I need something else. Well, I can make WordPress jump through some hoops, or I can just configure something right out of the box. Like Expression Engine or like Craft is very, very similar.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that another one Craft, CMS.
Yeah, I did a project with Craft a year or two ago just to make sure I wasn't missing something that I would really enjoy. And I did enjoy it. It felt a little more hoop jumpy to me for whatever reason, but that may just be because I'm so familiar with Expression Engine. A lot of people love Craft. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's a good CMS, and I have no disappointment that I used it for the project that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one that oddly craftcms.com seems to be down or broken right now, at least for me anyways. It might just be on my end. But yeah, that's Expression Engine is like that one was around a long time ago. They went through some sort of split, right? Or something happened and then or maybe
I think a bunch of Expression Engine developers got disillusioned and broke off to create Craft.
Gotcha. Okay. So similar ideas. So me personally,
CMS seems to be down. It's down for me too.
Which it happens. Not
for sure.
Not a glowing endorsement, but it might also just be. Oh, I think I saw something about Cloudflare having issues today. So maybe that's what's going on. Could be just a simple DNS thing, not necessarily a CMS based thing. Very unlikely to be anything based with a CMS. So, but yeah. So, and then there is sites like I know B had mentioned Bearblog, and there was another one that we remember trying that's like so common with. Even like Microblog, for example, which I use for cross-posting and stuff. Google Cloud is having issues too, apparently. So, good day to talk about websites, I guess. See what actually survives services being down. But Microblog actually has technically could work. There's pages. I could build a website with it for fairly cheap. But it's a nice little service. It has a native Mac app and an iOS app to run post to with if you want to. That's what I love about it. Handles cross posting to all sorts of sites and Blue Sky and etc. But it's again, it doesn't scream like professional thing. It screams sort of says a good enough thing, which is fine. And again, I don't want to try and build up what my website is or was or whatever by any means because it's obviously there's like a flash of weird loading there. If you do any sort of hovering over a button. Oh, maybe I fixed some of them. But anyway, some of the buttons are like unreadable when you hover. Right. Needs some love. But anyways, so that's where I'm kind of like why it would be a good time to maybe do some updating and looking this up. But I look at something like Craft, like Expression Engine, Astro. So that was the other one. Yeah, Astro.build is Astro, which is like a static site generator and more probably. Someone can... Oh, there we go. JavaScript web framework to optimize for building fast content-driven websites. It's got some good, I guess, dev world momentum behind it as this is my words, slightly more professional version of like 11D. Go Hugo was the other one that B had said. Yeah, Hugo, which is actually what's behind Microblog. So Astro, and the thing that's really attractive to me whenever I look at any of these, like 11D static site generators, like 11D Astro, Craft, even let's say if we throw that Craft Expression Engine in it, is that Astro is one of the few. I haven't looked at Craft in a while, and I guess I won't be today just because their website's down. But Astro is one of the few that has like decent themes, which for me as a website builder person with only enough knowledge to be dangerous in terms of CSS, as you can see by my website, I need a strong base to start from and where I can just like change a little bit of
Yeah.
the CMS around, update the content, obviously, add some pages, etc. And very comfortable, like I said, pushing and pulling with GitHub and hosting on Netlify or whatever the latest flavor of hosting is. But I'm not interested in like designing from scratch.
If I remember correctly, I think Craft is similar to Expression Engine in that they don't do a lot of themes, if any. I think each of them come with a very simple, basic, like bare bones example of a data set and some HTML that might go with it. But because they're both so unstructured right out of the box, it's hard to, because like you can't just have a theme, you also need to set up your CMS to support that theme.
Right.
So like if you're going to set up a blog, you need to have blog entries. Blog entry needs a title and a body and an image and something, that kind of stuff. So like WordPress is able to support a robust theming environment because it comes with some of those expectations already met out of the box. You need a theme. I've got a blog theme here. That's great. WordPress is a blog out of the box. Something like Expression Engine or Craft are a little more amorphous. And so themes are a little tougher.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where like whenever I get too far into those kind of serve sites or whatever CMSs, then I love the idea of it at first, and then I start breaking down I get tired of like having to build everything myself, and so then I reach for like the WordPress is the other extreme, obviously, like you said, and then somewhere in the middle is something like this where there is a theme that I can run with, but then what often for me happens with these kinds of services, and would be similar with Craft or whatever, is like version 2.7 or whatever comes out and it changes how this thing slightly works, and then I have to know which things I changed in the CSS or in the structure to make sure it's current or whatever, or I just don't worry about that. Like that's definitely obviously part of you can just not care. But
if you're like doing all the jobs yourself, because it's just a small project or it's a personal project or whatever, I'm a big fan of the good enough solution. And for me, like the good enough solution is I either just build a static site or I use Expression Engine. And if I just need a good enough front end, then I go to like something like pixelarity.com, which has some dated at this point HTML templates, but they look good enough. And I just take what I need out of them and plug them into the CMS.
Pixelarity. Oh, interesting. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So like
so
for this particular site, like it's like a flat fee, like it's a monthly subscription fee, but you just pay once and you download whatever templates you want, and you can use them in perpetuity for commercial projects or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I just use those as a way to just get something out the door instead of worrying about trying to make it look good.
Yeah. 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 Like I say, pick whatever is easiest if you don't update it often. Yeah. And that's definitely where I need to lean. Like my personal blog at chrisenz.com is Ghost, because I do actually post there 1 to 6 times a week, and like to be able to just quickly go write a blog post, put a picture of my dog, and hit publish, and know that it's just going to work, and not have to like fiddle with plugins or updates. But I do post to it fairly regularly, and so whereas my business site, I don't know when probably the last time was when I created any sort of YouTube video. Or actually live stream.
It looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
I know, and that's where like
like you might be tired of it, but that's a different thing.
Yes, yeah, and that's what
it doesn't scream. This is a 10-year-old website that is not up to date.
Right. Yeah, and there's that flash of like whatever. It's probably because this loading image is probably like 6,000 gigabytes or something that I did, and it's more like it's much like the what's the problem? Like if I buy, if you're unhappy in life, and so you think, oh, if I just buy this new gaming PC, I'll be happy again. Right. And so it's a little bit of like that, where with my own websites, where I'm just like, even though really, if I just like dug in and been like, what do I actually want it to say here on this homepage, and figure that out, then I could actually be fine with this website. Because I think even I'm nervous, but like even mobile, it probably is, good enough.
Not terrible, but could be better, but it's fine.
Yeah. So, anyways, so if I just did that work instead of like thinking, oh, if I just buy this other theme, even though this, like, I'm like looking at this like, oh, it's actually nice. It's nice and fresh. I like the typography. It's fun colors. But then I start customizing it to look for my work, and it's like, oh, where did all the fun go? I just sucked all the fun out of it because I had to
that happens so much, with the templates on Pixelarity. They look great because they're tuned to look great with all the bits and pieces in them. But I only need 2 of them, and that makes the page feel much less dynamic and much less interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off there in that you either need to make up some baloney to fill in all the gaps, or it's just going to look less dynamic than you want it to.
Yeah. Like you said, you need to remember the functionality you need as well, like easy audio embeds, etc. That's definitely, especially for someone like me in the audio, or not the audio world, but the web dev adjacent world. I hear stuff and I'm like, oh, I could do that, and then I spend 6 hours trying to do the thing that the Chris Coyers of the world or whatever do in 5 minutes, and then I'm like, oh no, it turns out I can't do that actually. And maybe I could if I spent long enough on it, but I also just wanted to write a blog post instead of fiddling with CSS and JavaScript on something just to be able to embed a thing. So it is, and definitely looking at the WordPress dashboard, it feels like a thing I've been staring at for 20 years now, probably. Yeah. And so
as somebody who doesn't use WordPress very much, this seems like it hasn't changed for over a decade.
Yeah. Like this, especially the sidebar is just ancient. And so that's definitely the part where I'm like, because even where's my the ghost admin panel feels, and again, I haven't been staring at it, so maybe it hasn't changed either for 10 years, but they're actually building activity or a federation or whatever into the dashboard, and so it looks, other than the fact that I've called John on this, at Ghost, their dashboard is based around the assumption that your MRR is the most important thing for your blog or whatever, which is not really anything that I can relate to or whatever. But
I mean, structurally, this is similar, right? It's just that it looks nicer. There's more white space. There's more space for your eyes to relax. Stuff seems to, I don't know if it's loading more quickly, but the fact that it's a not quite white panel on the left and a white panel on the right makes it feel like things plug in, pop in a little more smoothly. The design is just nicer and it's more pleasant to use.
Yeah.
Whereas WordPress is where's that thing I need? Click, open, dig down.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit more like a chore. And every time I jump into WordPress, which I give it a chance every few years, what's new in WordPress? And it's been a decade now, but Gutenberg has just been oh, I don't want to use this.
Yeah. Yeah, because definitely the posting system, this is what it I just wanted to say, they should put that in the WordPress ads. Most people hate changing platforms. Exactly. And I wish Ghost had a layout without the monetization stuff. And that. Apparently they do. This is where, I like to be somewhat greedy, or the idea that I could make some money off my thing. So I connected my Stripe account to Ghost. And I think what John has said is true, John O'Nolan, the Ghost guy. If I turn that off, then I think the dashboard doesn't actually have monetization stuff in it, but it would just jump down to engagement. So that's what he said. I haven't turned it off yet, just because I'm vain about the possibility that someone might want to send me randomly some money through my blog. It's an old habit that hasn't died. But yeah, I don't know, just everything having a floating thingy and a whatever, and I somehow gets in the way. Which I should just do what Chris Coyer did with the ShopTalk sites, which is WordPress based, which he loves and is great. As for a lot of his sites, is just turned off the visual editor or whatever this is called. And
I think I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Medium showed up, 15 years ago or so, and WordPress went, oh, this is what composing for the web should be. You know what I mean? It should be WYSIWYG. It should be beautiful. And they got halfway there.
Yeah.
It kind of looks better. It's not nicer to use when you start talking about complex content. But if you just want a title and a headline, it looks great.
Yeah.
But it's still clunked down by the rest of the dashboard.
Well, and you have to use Jetpack as a plugin to get testimonials and portfolio support, but then it's this is why you would go to Expression Engine or Craft is well, no, I want portfolios, but I want the portfolio to also have a testimonial block right below it automatically every time, not have to go to testimonial content and add that there. And then because they're actually together, they don't need to be separate or whatever, and that gives you the flexibility to be always have an image that's this size, always have a title, always have a content block, always have a testimonial, always have a link to client site, and always have a content block for episode example or whatever I might need or whatever, which is very attractive to me in terms of like, I love the idea of like building a site structure and thinking it through ahead of time and actually having like, you know, my website now as an example of what I would want and what I wouldn't want. But then when it comes to like designing that to look nice, that's where I'm like, barf.
I mean, that's why designers make big bucks, right?
Exactly.
And that's like why content strategists make big bucks. Because when you're talking about something like an organization that's like, you know, any more than 2 or 3 people, that's like more people that can hold the same idea of what their website is in their heads at the same time.
Yeah.
So you need to plan out how the content lives in the site, how it gets published, and how it can intermingle with itself. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people start with the homepage on the website, but the homepage is actually a distillation of everything that's inside the website. So you have to say, oh, I'm going to publish this kind of content and photos and calendar and all that kind of stuff, so you know what's available to show up on the homepage.
Mm-hmm.
If you go the other direction, it's a lot more difficult. But WordPress is good at taking in kind of amorphously shaped content, but it takes a lot less work. Something like Expression Engine is like, I need you to tell me what kind of content you're going to put inside of me before I can even think about publishing anything.
Yeah.
And that's like the work that you hire me to do, because when you're a company of 20 or 50 or 100 people, they're not all going to agree or be able to figure out what they need. So that's where consultants come in. But if you're just talking about Lemon Productions, like you can figure that out as long as you don't drive yourself crazy and like help and like pick the tools that make it easier for you. Right. WordPress could be one of those, you know, or Hugo or whatever. The front end is the most complicated thing from your perspective, A, because you're not a designer, and B, because building a front end is actually kind of difficult. The CMS isn't necessarily going to do that for you unless you happen to find a theme that you like.
Unless I do what's Figma's calling it, like the vibe coding AI barf to make you choke.
Oh yeah.
I don't need designers and stuff anymore. I just use Figma.
We're back to the old days of like, remember like GeoCities used to have a visual designer, and it would take like 5 minutes for one little change to propagate, because if you look under the hood, it's because it's building tables and 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 tables. Whereas like anything that's automatically generating HTML based on vibes right now is similar in that it's like divs and divs and divs and divs and divs and divs and divs.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean? We lost our way when we gave up on Front Page 98 is all I'll say. that was the peak of web design for me. When
I enjoyed that. That was like one of the first things I ever used. Yeah.
Me too.
It was fun to use.
That was when like Dreamweaver came out and it was like, oh, you could actually dig into the code a bit more. But Front Page, you could just like literally design it as if it's in Microsoft Word and hit publish and not care about accessibility or readability or usability.
You're right.
It was the best though.
Yeah.
Blew my mind at the time.
Those were the days.
There's a question here.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No. It's like everybody is like, it's this common trope now, and people are like, oh, back in the day, the 50s or the 90s or whatever was so much better. Well, there are certain people, if you ask them, the 50s or the 90s were not all that much better. And so I think that's kind of how we feel about the early web. It's like, oh, what building websites used to be easy, but then like there's like 20% of your audience who's like, I can't read that. I can't load that. My browser doesn't work that way.
I don't have, I have to dial into the internet once a week and load your web page, and that's all the amount of time and bandwidth I have for... Right. Yeah. B asked a question here. Oh, just threw away. Where we go. Do you like Ghost for your personal blog, Chris? I often think about investing in a site with it for Twitch updates, personal projects, DJ stuff. Better for embeds and content creator focus. Yeah, so that's definitely why I was drawn to, despite I kind of did all of this processing of like, what do I want for my website when I was doing it with my personal site, which was on 11D, so static site generator. Before that, it was on WordPress. And so I was trying to like rethink why and what I use and, what's the reason for this all. And so similar to what I'm doing right now in terms of my business website. And I did land on Ghost for that idea of like, it seemed like at the time, and still is bearing that out to my eyes, some site, a CMS and a company that's behind it that's at least like savvy to what web tech is like and what people are using it for, wanting to do well and good by that on the dev side, but also understanding that most of their audience is a content creator, kind of newsletters, blogging, videos, whatever, and sort of seemed like the safest middle ground to land on, and where I wouldn't have to worry about updating plugins or making sure that the design didn't fall over because some new thing is out. And so they do have a theme marketplace where you can buy themes. I've used for my site like one of the stock, whichever theme, I forget what it is. And so, yeah, that's where I feel like it has been or was and is the best sort of middle ground as far as the site, and then also the CMS for it. There's lots of little weird things like comments are just kind of gone. There's no like comment way to, like, if you leave a comment on my blog right now, I get an email about it, which gives me a link to the post that you wrote a comment on, but I can't anywhere in here see comments. And even if I go to, like, I forget which one has a post or has a comment here, but this necessary conversation one, I can go here to the site, like writing on the right, what am I trying to say? The editing side of it, and see what's there. But there's no metadata to say, by the way, that post has 3 or 4 comments on it, unless I go to the front end of the website to see that. So it's weird, which is something they've, again, I called or whatever, asked John about it somewhere on Mastodon, and he replied and said it's definitely something they're working on. They have a big version 6 launch coming out sometime this year that, in addition to the Federation stuff, like, is also going to include some sort of commenting updates. So hopefully that bears out. I don't have enough comments to make it really that big a deal, but and the other part that they are really good at, fairly savvy at least, is newsletter integration. So to me, at the time when I made the switch, it was like Substack was kind of like the big home for content creators because it was super easy to like write your posts and they could go out as a newsletter. Both would work, and you can have both, and you can have subscribers and make money and the networking and all that kind of stuff, except for all the Nazi nonsense that Substack allows. So I have a post, a reply somewhere from John O'Nolan, who's the head of Ghost, saying, we will not allow, he replied to me and said, like, we won't ever allow Nazis on our platform. So whether that's important to you or not, and certainly not like, hopefully we're all against Nazis, but I just mean like, there's only so much you can do with, as far as what tech is behind and et cetera in these days. But
yeah,
there is like, they do have some integration of like the follow suggestions. So if you're on my site, it'll suggest a few sites that I've listed as sites you should check out. And it works. Yeah, I'm hoping we all agree Nazis are bad. That's a sort of baseline assumption I guess I'm making, but I understand that you can't necessarily know that you're, whatever, the Ford truck you bought that's a used truck or whatever might have some guy who built the tires for it is actually a Nazi, and you don't know that, and so that's where it's got complicated. But obviously, if the platform itself is like friendly to that kind of stuff, I don't want to encourage more of usage of it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so it's
there are a couple writers I used to pay for to follow on Substack. I've since unsubscribed and just kind of gently prod them every once in a while. I'll be like, hey, I'd love to resubscribe if you only weren't on this platform.
Yeah. Which again is like, it's super complicated for a lot of those kind of people to switch. And I fully sympathize with that.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple, like, well, just like me, I switching my website and I know what I'm doing for the most part. But yeah. So integrating with a newsletter is kind of slick. I haven't really turned that on. People can subscribe to my blog and then they'll get a newsletter edition of it.
And when you say integrating with a newsletter, you just mean that's part of Ghost service. They will publish a newsletter for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think, and you can actually have multiple different feeds of newsletters if you're paying for their newsletter.
Yeah. I think Ghost is one of the primary Substack alternatives that people talk about.
Yeah, because it gives you a little granular control over members. So everyone, right now mine is just like everybody sees everything. But I could have a membership thing where, they'd see the first part of a post and then they'd have to subscribe, or I could have members only posts or whatever. And the newsletter can go out to specific groups of people each time and not automatically goes out. The thing I struggle with Ghost newsletter service, just to go a little bit down this rabbit hole, is you can see I have this button down newsletter service tab that's perpetually open that I still haven't sent a new update out for about 1.5 years now. But it's every single time you write a blog post with Ghost, and I think and Substack would be the same. It just sends that as a newsletter. So I write a blog post in the morning at 10 a.m. newsletter email, and I write another blog post at 2 o'clock that afternoon, another email. And I like the idea better of like batching. Like, here's all the stuff I wrote this week.
Yeah.
Here's the newsletter, because I feel like I don't want to. I started overthinking like writing a new blog post for every little thing I was inspired by or creative thing that I wanted to do, thinking, oh no, I'm going to send someone an email each time I do that. That's stupid. I kind of downplayed as far as like subscribing to the newsletter, but I also just like, whatever, they can subscribe, and if they get them and they don't like it, they can unsubscribe, and I'll try not to lose any sleep over it. So, but yeah,
it's interesting that that it's not sophisticated enough to think about that at the moment. Because as you say, like maybe some people do want to be emailed every time, but most people probably don't. It'd be nice to be able to batch those up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, again, something where they're probably, hopefully, giving a little more. It's, again, like, how much control do you give the people that are using your service? Because then it introduces a whole bunch of complexity. Or do you just and dictate stuff? And they're kind of trying to walk that fine line, I'm sure. So, but yeah, like updating, they have page support, so you can do like a page of all your links or wherever, any sort of pages that you want. So I'm very comfortable with it. This is why it would make an appealing host for my business website too, because I know it and it works well and it's stable. Like, it's never, ever been down. Knock on wood, obviously, with Google Cloud and everything that's happening. But
right.
So
what would the reason for not using it be?
The main issue actually is like settling on design, first of all, having to figure out how to put the custom content that I do have inside of. So like I would lose even though I'm probably going to lose them anyways unless I stay with WordPress, I'd lose comments. I don't know where I'd fit testimonials in exactly into here other than just like a page of testimonials. And whereas right now they're like individual content entries. And then the biggest one would be the cost. I think if I want to use a custom theme with Ghost, it's was it $25 a month plan is the minimum. So right now I'm on a starter for my personal blog, which is fine, just using the free like built-in themes. But if I wanted to use a custom theme, then that's where they charge you $25 a month. So
when you say custom, do you just mean like, oh, here's more themes you can choose from, or they actually customize it for you in some way?
Either, I guess. They don't customize it for you, but you could, like, I could hire someone to be a dev or buy a custom Ghost theme off of Theme Forest or wherever.
I see. So right now, even though you picked the theme, you don't have access to the bones. You don't have access to the code. Right.
You can do a little bit of CMS or CSS and adjustments.
Yeah.
But the theme you can start with is the limited to, which I actually think it's a really smart play by them. Like, here's the starter themes. These ones we know are rock solid, and you can't break your website with them.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. You're only giving me $9 a month. I'm not going to let you break something in a way that I have to fix it for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and even some of their integration support. So I can't use Zapier with stuff unless you pay for the $25 a month plan. But, and then, there is like, they do allow you to do a bit of code injection, as far as like I have my Google tag. I never look at it. I should just delete that, honestly. But, so it works. Like I said, it would be an appealing option. If I liked some of the stock themes for my business, probably then the $9 a month plan there would work great for me. And I'm kind of tempted, but I know I've been down that road before, trying to like integrate, because I do have an import-export feature for pulling in from WordPress. But of course, like my blog posts generally work for my existing site, but like portfolio testimonials, that doesn't work, and it's a lot of more manual moving over.
I mean, that's the main reason that there are multiple reasons people don't like switching platforms. I think the main reason from a user side is they don't like learning a new interface or learning how to republish their content again. From a development standpoint, the biggest pain point for migrating is making, content that used to be shaped like this fit into this new system over here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely having this. I keep at one point in this conversation, I was like, oh yeah, I should do it in Astro. Now, and I was like, no, I should stick with WordPress actually. And then now I'm like, oh, actually, Ghost would be pretty. So in the end, I'll do nothing and run out of time.
It's funny, the way that I've answered that the way I've solved that problem myself in the past is like most of our businesses is people who already have websites who just want a better website. And so we have to figure out how to get the content from old system to new system. And the way I've made that kind of easy for myself is I build the new system so that it can support a dumb version of the content. And so like going forward from day one of the new website, we've got shiny new content. If you want to go backwards in time, we've still got that content. It's just not in all the nice new shiny holes in the templates. Do you know what I mean? It's just like I import it all as a big bunch of HTML paragraph tags and whatnot. And if you go back in time and read that content, that's what you get. But if you go forward in time from day one in the new system, then you get the new headers and the new insets and the new slideshows and all that kind of stuff. So like, I don't try and make the old content smart. I just make sure it's available.
Yeah. Which that is one thing that I know I've noticed WordPress doing okay at is like you have old posts that are like not using the new system where they've got just like, it's just like you said, paragraph tag, and divs all over the place. And then it will give you the ability to like update it to the new content block system as you go. Like if you go back and refresh an old post that has a spelling mistake or whatever, it will give you the ability to refresh that into new content styles, content blocks or whatever.
But I assume that's actually like more of a burden than it seems because it tries to shove it into the Gutenberg or whatever interface. And you're like, oh, that's not right. And that's not right. I need to do this, and this. And you end up just being like, just leave it the way it was. It was fine. Yeah,
exactly. Which is why this is where I don't explain this one to me. So WordPress, Astro, Lavendy, Expression Engine, I'm sure, Craft, podcast hosts, all support RSS generally for the blog posts, for the episodes, like not so much for the pages, but for everything. Why is RSS not used? Why would you not have an RSS importer? Like just, here's my website over here. Suck off. Sounds terrible. Pull in. No. Someone clip that for me. Pull in the RSS feed of like my 1,000 posts. Just shut it off right now.
It's a very good question.
Chad is liking that
like
one.
Maybe because people assume that the RSS that you're going to pull in is going to be so different from how you want it formatted in the future that it's not worth it. But for me, I disagree. Like I just said, pull in all that RSS content, give it like a lowest common denominator template to present it in, and then all the future content can have your fancy new template. And like the WordPress approach isn't bad. Like you open some old content, and it's like, oh, do you want to refresh this page? Do you want it to make it look nicer? And you can be like, no, or yes, or whatever. That's fine. But like RSS is kind of like formatted in a lowest common denominator method. Or I guess the other side is true too, where it's like an RSS feed could be full of so much of that old WordPress shortcode and div junk that it's not worth pulling in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's probably not explicit to WordPress in general. Like any CMS where content used to be wrapped in all kinds of presentational HTML is just more difficult to import.
Right.
Whereas today, like in something like, you know, even WordPress is better about this than it used to be, but one of the main reasons I use Expression Engine, yada, yada, is because I don't do any of the presentational stuff in the content fields. I keep the text as text. If I need to call something out as like, you know, a pull quote or something, I try and put it in its own separate field so that I can handle the presentation of that in the HTML instead of trying to handle presentation in the CMS fields, which makes stuff just ugly and hard to deal with and hard to import. Like if that's in your RSS, then you need to work around that.
Right. Yeah. I'm still dealing with the aftermath of sucking off RSS comments. It's a Thursday afternoon. It's Friday night somewhere. At least someone got to clip something for the first time on Twitch. So that's achievement unlocked. Yeah. It's a good tip to have. So if you're ever watching a stream, you're like, we should save that. Know how to clip that. Right. All right. Chat, there's actually, there's 5 or 6 people in there. Is there anything you're seeing or hearing that you'd like, they never thought about this, or Chris should think about that? Throw it in the chat right away and we'll consider it before we wrap up. But this has been helpful in terms of talking it through and giving even just processing why and what. And I think like in a perfect world, this is the paradox of like running your own business, I think, and it doesn't matter whether it's podcast editing or shoemaking or whatever, is like when it's busy and I have the money rolling in, I'm like, oh, I should hire Josh in the Shop Talk Show thing or somebody to like build me a new website. That would be great use of my time or money right now because I don't have time for that. But I do have the money to pay them. And then now when it's a little slower, I'm like, oh, I should redesign my website, but I'm not going to pay Andrew to build me a new website or Tim or whatever, like, because I don't have the money. I don't know what's going to happen next month if the clients don't keep coming in. And I've seen this, like, when I was building websites for people, it was the same system of like, they're way too busy, don't have time to meet and plan out the website, just want to pay me to do it, but then don't really actually care or complain after the fact about what the website actually is.
Yeah, right.
But when they're slow, they're like, we really want the websites done and we would like it done right away, but we just don't have any money to pay you, or whatever. And that's kind of the paradox, I guess, or the irony, whichever one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so glad we could all learn new things. I'll probably be back here, much like there's a few things in my life that I keep returning to, which is buying some sort of gaming PC perpetually for Shop Talk Show, especially the Discord in there knows that I am like every year or so around this time, I update my spreadsheet of gaming PC updates, options, and seriously contemplate it, and then don't pull the trigger after asking for a bunch of advice. And then, updating my website. So we'll probably be back here in 6 to 8 months doing this all over again, but with nothing having changed.
Yeah.
And actually, Spencer, the one advantage I have now is that my oldest kid is like, I think I want a gaming PC. So I might be able to like riff off of his money that he's making.
Right.
And at the very least, get my Xbox back, which would help.
You could split it, but you could also build it together.
Exactly.
That's a nice father-child opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. You built your PC 10 years ago and then just upgraded parts. Yeah, that's the dream. I used to do that. Like I used to work before building websites. I was actually at the computer store building computers for people and stuff. Build my own. But
I have never built a computer.
Maybe this is the year, Tim.
No, I don't think so.
I can't suck you into my not. Okay. Anyway,
I could use a new computer though.
We've talked about that for a year, but definitely staying in the Apple
because I am getting a new Mac, and the new Mac's not going to be able to play PUBG, so I need a way to play PUBG.
Oh yeah. I keep hoping, like, we keep hearing the whispers and rumors. I didn't actually see anything about gaming in the keynote actually that Apple just had, but like they have a much better I forget what it's called, like translation kit for game developers.
Yeah, I had big hopes for that. I think that came out 2 years ago, but not a whole lot has come out of that.
Yeah, despite the apps, like on the iPad and iPhone, like the app store is getting a game app now. It's broken out, so I don't know.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think games get lost in the app store, I'm sure. So, but yeah. Anyways, all right. Thanks everybody for chiming in, and we'll be back maybe next Thursday. See you then. See you, Tim.
See you later.